scooter in the house to lie for and off in the wings as well. So not even keeping it around the middle, giving.
Jalen Hurts is a very good quarterback, and quite frankly, he doesn't get enough grace, I should say, for saying, I win football games. Like, what would you rather? We go play Mahomes, oh man, 41-40, Hurts, 375, 4 touchdowns, they lost. Boy, that guy's good. Or no, hey, you know what? I'm going to play within myself. I'm not going to turn the football over. I'm going to play within the game script here, and we're just going to win. Doesn't matter who gets the accolades.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The biggest games, the biggest bets that you need to know. So much fun already, Joe. I feel
Yeah,
like
I'm
we
having
got
a good
lot
time.
of information now.
Yeah. Good games, not great, but again, it's college football. You can bet on them, nothing better.
Bet it, win. By the way, and I always like to say this, and it's true. Like, you can have the worst game in the world. You cash your ticket, it's like a Picasso. Like, that game was the best game I ever watched in my life.
Are you kidding? Especially when you're hitting parlays.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
It is the biggest story in sports. It is the ability to predict outcomes in sports without calling it sports betting. But I guess Massachusetts doesn't like it very much, and they're saying basically you can't operate in our market without having a license like FanDuel and DraftKings. And they're coming at this company, Robinhood, who you may be familiar with. Robinhood right now says, hey, we should be able to operate just like these other companies.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid. It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
Major League Baseball rolling out the robot umpires, plus the second longest tenured college football coach is now out of a job. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington, and thanks so much for joining us for our 100th episode. Ooh. Each and every weekday, of course, we're chatting the biggest stories in the business and culture of sports. We also have U.S. women's soccer stars, the Mewis sisters, on later talking about their new podcast. But first, let's dive into the shoot around.
Yeah, very big show for us here at Front Office Sports today. So let's start in the NFL, where Commissioner Roger Goodell told CNBC that the league could begin renegotiating their current media rights deals as soon as next year in 2026. That'd be 4 years before the current opt-out clause after the 2029-30 season. Now, the NFL would need agreement from their current media partners in Disney, Comcast, Paramount, Amazon, and Fox to start those discussions on any new deal, and it could expand the league's partnership with YouTube and Netflix. The league signed their current 11-year, $111 billion media rights deal in 2021, but it would be so crazy to think that this could be starting pretty much already next year.
I know, and I remember when the news broke around Skydance, their acquisition of Paramount, that at that time we wondered if Roger Goodell and the NFL would consider, taking advantage of the change of control clause to opt out with that new deal. Roger Goodell quickly made sure to reassure that they would not explore that. But here you are, fast forward, why now are they considering renegotiating? As Goodell said himself, money. They feel like they're leaving a lot of money on the table, especially looking at the deals the NBA, the NHL have had in terms of media rights. So when you look at the changes that they've had of Amazon Prime, Netflix, YouTube, in addition to trying to have an 18th game, international games, an international Super Bowl, it feels like now is the time, because they've already said if they could get a Netflix or YouTube to be a bigger partner, it could be billions of dollars more in their pockets.
Yeah, and you would think the one league that doesn't want this to happen is Major League Baseball, whose rights are also up in 2028 as well. The worry then that all these media partners would spend so much in the NFL, there would be nothing left for Major League Baseball. All right, Oklahoma State fired their longtime head coach Mike Gundy. That after a rocky 1-2 start to the season, and that ends an over 20-year career for the second longest tenured coach in college football. Now, Oklahoma State will pay $15 million to buy out the three-time Big 12 Coach of the Year's contract, with athletic director Chad Weiberg saying in a statement, quote, that this is a pivotal moment. The stakes have never been higher, and we need everyone on board. Now, Gundy was making $6.7 million this year. This is part of a revised deal that he signed with the university last year that also reduced his buyout from $25 million, Renee.
Yes, and Chad Weiberg did mention he does not regret moving away from Mike Gundy last season. He did have expectations this season would be better, but as you mentioned, a 1-2 start has not been good. But he also said it's not about one particular moment or comments that Gundy's made or anything else. It's a culmination of multiple things. And a big part of that is he said he's not worried about this week, next week, or this season. It's more about the future of if Gundy could handle managing and running this team in the future, because he's also mentioned he feels as though they need a coach that can handle the new era of college football, especially because it's changed so much over the last few years. And it makes me wonder, Baker, if this is the first, or not the first, of many that we will see in terms of colleges that want to move on to get a coach that can handle this NIL transfer portal era that we're in.
I think you're spot on, because look at Gundy's comments earlier this year against Oregon's Dan Lanning and criticizing Oregon for how much money they were spending on their roster. Times have changed from like old coaches like Gundy.
That's why there's a few coaches that are already out of their programs.
So true. Well, after a dramatic fall in this summer's NBA draft that likely cost him $9 million in earnings, rookie Ace Bailey parted ways with his longtime manager Omar Cooper. This all according to The Athletic. The projected top 3 pick from Rutgers fell to the Jazz at number 5 when reports surfaced that Cooper advised Bailey not to work out for certain teams, that in hopes that he would land with either the Sixers or the Wizards. Now, the report does say, Renee, that Bailey is interviewing new representation.
Yes, we wondered why the pre-draft process unfolded the way it did for Ace Bailey. It did not paint him out in a good light. And now we find out it's Omar Cooper, someone who he actually met with, that used to be a mentor. He connected with him on the AAU circuit back in Atlanta, helped him get into Rutgers, has been there along the way to help him get into the NBA. But for Ace Bailey, now we have a better sense of why this happened, why he canceled the workout with the Sixers, canceled and declined invitations for other teams, was the only U.S. prospect not to meet with NBA teams. And then to find out on top of that, Cooper's son, actually, Omar Cooper Jr., allegedly was supposed to serve as a guest coach in the summer league for the Jazz, but the NBA got involved and made sure that could not happen. There were concerns, of course, by no surprise. So being that he's not even a certified agent and was his manager, there's a lot of aspects he was involved in that I think now just allows Ace Bailey to find new representation and start to focus on the season that starts in a few weeks.
And his team had to do a lot of cleanup duty, including coming on this show to say how excited Ace was about going to the Jazz, which for all intents and purposes, he will be a starter and likely a key contributor for the Jazz. But what a messy way that this all sort of happened.
Clean up on Isle Bailey.
Yeah, no joke. Well, after more than 6 seasons of testing in the minors, Major League Baseball says their new automated ball strike robo-umpire will be used starting next season. This to challenge calls made by human umpires. So just how exactly will this new system work, and could it lead to less player and manager ejections? Well, let's take a look at that in today's main event. All right, let's bring in FOS reporter Eric Fisher. So, Eric, how exactly is the robo-ump ABS system going to work here?
So, if anybody remembers from spring training with the challenge-based system, that's how it's going to work, that each team will have 2 challenges to start a game. Only the pitcher, the batter, or the catcher can initiate a challenge. The batter, if you remember, tapping their heads if they didn't like a call, they can initiate the challenge. If a challenge is successful, they retain that challenge so that the team would keep 2 as long as they continue to be correct. But it's going to be, again, that challenge-based system and not every pitch called electronically.
Yeah, and we've seen years of testing with this system in the minor leagues. As you mentioned, we've seen it in spring training, the All-Star game. Why now is this the right time for them to roll it out going into next season?
They finally worked out all of the logistics. This has been a long time coming. You're correctly pointing out that they finally worked out all the logistics, and there's just a lot of sort of devil in the details in terms of making sure this really works out correctly. And what we saw 3 years ago with the pitch clock introduction is a pretty similar analog, that there was a lot of testing of that in the minors, and then they finally got that done. And once it hit the major leagues, it was a big success, and they're hoping for the same thing again here.
Eric, is there any chance that maybe this reduces the amount of manager or player ejections? Because think of how many ejections happen in a game purely for balls and strike calls.
Oh, I think there's going to be a big reduction because of that. Some of the research that we've seen is, close to 2/3 of those on-field ejections and those incidents directly relate to some issue stemming from ball and strike calls. So just taking down the temperature on that, I think it's going to have a big impact.
What are some of the concerns that people are having, whether players, managers, others, around how this system could not be great and how it's rolled out?
So there's one, of course, which is game flow. They feel like they've got that pretty well ironed out, that these reviews should take about 15 to 20 seconds, and it was pretty smooth during spring training. But anytime you introduce an additional review process like this, you want to make sure it's not clunky and it continues to work within the overall game flow. And then there's just a matter of matching up with each batter's actual strike zone, and they're going to do those sort of preliminary measurements and based on each player's height and so forth, and have that original strike zone mapped out. And that's sort of how the review is done, where you're matching the actual pitch versus the preset strike zone. Are those preset strike zones going to be done correctly? And that's just another logistical thing that's going to have to be worked out.
You mentioned a lot of the new rules and advancements that Commissioner Rob Manfred has implemented over the last couple of years. You talked to him at our Tuned In event last week. Do you feel like the success of things like the pitch clock and all these other things have sort of led to why ABS is being implemented here, because the commissioner sort of feels the wind behind his back right now?
Without question. And I asked him specifically about this, and I thought his answer was very thoughtful, that they put a lot of work into the pitch clock, did a lot of surveying, a lot of testing, a lot of years before it was rolled out in full, and then the actuality matched up with what they predicted. And what he told me was that gave me a lot of he, meaning Manfred, gave him a lot of confidence to go to the owners and say, we can change again. And again, because the process at the front end was so thoughtful and rigorous.
And all these changes, I know, have always, with any change, comes with criticism, especially taking away from what baseball's truly about. My final question to you, Eric, in these final seconds is, how does this still keep the human element and balance, maybe making the game more efficient?
Yeah, so it's important to remember that the human umpire is still going to be behind the plate calling every pitch, and there's roughly 25,000 pitches in any full week of MLB regular season play. It's a lot of pitches, and they're still going to be called by humans. What this does is just layer on some technology on top of that in those critical moments to get it right.
All right, FOS reporter Eric Fisher, thank you so much for that. And we have a lot more show headed your way. Don't go anywhere.
There are right now 10 teams who are 0-2. Every team on this list is 0-2. These are the 7 teams through 2 weeks who have already been eliminated from the Super Bowl picture. First, the Cleveland Browns, who I believe were the worst team coming into this season. The Cleveland Browns are absolutely done.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Josh Heupel. I mean, please, dude, you got to be kidding me. How do you lose this game at home when you've got Georgia on the ropes with a iffy quarterback at best there in Gunnard, and you somehow figure out a way to lose that game? A game, Donnie, of which was pretty much in hand for Notre Dame, 3/4 of it.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid. It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
And welcome back into Front Office Sports today. I'm Renee Washington, and excited to get into some soccer updates because Men in Blazers Network has announced the women's game platform has 2 new shows dropping, and one new show, Newest Squared, drops this Friday, September 26th. I'm excited to welcome in the hosts of the show, sisters, soccer icons and legends, champions that have played on all levels of the game professionally and globally, Sam and Christy Mewis. So nice to have you both here with me. Welcome in and congratulations on this show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. We're so excited to be doing a podcast together.
I can only imagine what we're going to get with MUA Squared as it drops this Friday. And I know you've talked a lot, Tim, about how you're building at the women's game a space that can be the home of global women's football content, but also sisterhood, motherhood, family. What all can we expect from this show?
Oh my gosh. Well, first, lots of laughs. I think we have some like trailers and teasers coming out very, very soon. And watching just those back, I'm cracking up laughing. I think this show in particular is going to be a really unique way for me and Christy to share stories with our listeners that we've never really talked about before. We grew up playing soccer together against each other. We really impacted the way each other viewed the game and grew as players and people. So we're going to tell a lot of those stories, but we're also going to talk about what's going on in the soccer world right now. The biggest transfers, the championship games. We're going to kind of give our 2 cents on all of those things, all while getting updates on the baby, my dogs, things that are going on in our lives. So we're super excited to share it with everybody.
Yeah, and thrilled to be able to see this unfold, and with every episode as you can bring us into your family, but also soccer coverage as well, because as we are seeing the growth in content around soccer, we're also seeing such a tremendous growth globally in the game itself. I know we just heard the news that FIFA is actually considering a proposal around expanding the World Cup for 2030 on the men's side to 64 teams. We already know the men's and women's slates for their next upcoming World Cups are up to 48 teams. Christy, I'm curious your thoughts with all the growth in soccer as someone that's played in these spaces. What are your thoughts on how we keep seeing the growth of soccer? And do you think there's such thing as too many teams when it comes to something like the World Cup?
Honestly, no. Like, the more the merrier. I just think the growth is absolutely incredible. Being over here in England, you can truly see how the game just changes people's lives, how happy it makes people. And just a sport like football just really brings, I'm going to say football because I'm in England now. But you can just see how it really brings people together and creates community. And I think it's just like such a beautiful thing. So honestly, the more the merrier. That's great news.
Yeah, I feel like once you cross the pond, you have to switch over to football, so understood. But also some other changes that we've been seeing, as you guys have alluded to already in experience, there's so many different aspects of the pipeline to the NWSL as well as to the U.S. Women's National Team that are changing, including NWSL combines. And I'm interested in your thoughts when you heard this come out of that pipeline. As two people that have experienced it, I'm sure you'll talk about it a lot on your show. What are your thoughts on, with the draft no longer a thing for the league, them having combines for players, youth level and adult level combines?
Yeah, at the women's game, we actually did talk about this earlier this week on one of our other shows that's called Good Vibes FC. Becky Sauerbrunn and I spoke about the new NWSL combines. I, at first, was like, this seems like a really great opportunity. I think that with the draft going away, the kind of roadmap for young players has changed. And maybe a young 15 or 16-year-old who sees other teenagers playing in the league is unsure what to do next. Should I think about going to college? Should I think about trying to sign with an NWSL team? And I feel like the combines could potentially be a great opportunity for some of those players to get that roadmap back a little bit. Let's try to get to the combine. Let's see where we stand against some of these other young players. And let's figure out a way to make a plan for ourselves moving forward in a landscape that's changing very quickly and in a way that, is unprecedented. Women's soccer has never been through this before.
Absolutely. A lot of firsts that we're seeing. You hinted on those record transfer fees. That's a first. Globally, as well as within the league of the NWSL specifically, we saw the $600,000 transfer trade around Ali Setner. We've seen the $1.25 million record-shattering trade for Jaden Shaw. But we've also seen, specifically for the NWSL and women's soccer as a whole, prioritizing players' health, prioritizing salaries, resources, whether it's looking at incidents like Savannah DeMello and Savvy King or others. What else do you think in women's soccer, or football specifically, still needs to happen to continue to put players at the forefront?
Yeah, Christy, I might take this one just because I'm, covering the NWSL a lot more closely, whereas you're in England right now. I do think the instances that we've seen this year with Savvy King and Savannah DeMello, that showed a lot of growth from the league in the reaction that we saw with Savvy King. That game was continued after a life-saving event, and there was a lot of backlash from the audience, NWSL fans, to the league for making that decision. And unfortunately, when another incident happened, the league decided to suspend that game. The policy got changed thanks to the NWSLPA working towards that, and I think that shows a lot of growth from the league, which is a good thing. I know that the players and the PAs are constantly having conversations that put player safety and creating policies that prioritize that at the forefront of everything. And I think there are, I'm sure changes in the works as well, but looking at the CBA and what was accomplished, especially in this last go round, and what's still being discussed and still being accomplished, I do feel that the PA is really representing the players well with prioritizing player safety, and we saw growth in that area this year.
There's been a tremendous amount of growth, and I think a big part of that is there are a lot of former players like both of you, like myself, that are at the forefront of these conversations. Christy, as a player, now a mom, family woman, I'm curious your thoughts on having a platform like this to be able to continue to elevate all the tremendous things that we're seeing in soccer. What does this mean to you to be able to continue the growth of the beautiful game of soccer?
I think it's obviously really special. Sam and I have, so much to share. We have so many experiences, good and bad, through our years and our career with soccer. So it's a privilege to kind of be able to share it, but to also help, younger players, people who are striving to do what we did. I think that that's really important and kind of a responsibility that we take what we know and share it with the world. Honestly, I didn't really think that we would have that much to talk about, but then we got going on the first episode and I was like, oh my God, we have so much to talk about and so much to share, and we have so many experiences together, and we just kind of want to help anybody. If we can help one or two people through this, then that's going to, change the way that we view what we're doing. Like, we're just really happy with it. And I think we're just really excited to kind of give our insight onto things.
I love that. And I'm excited to hear these genuine moments, these conversations unfold. The timing, I feel like, is perfect for you guys. Sam, Christy, thank you guys so much for joining us on Front Office Sports today.
Thank
you. Thank you for having us.
And make sure you guys check out Mewis Squared this Friday as it drops on all of the platforms where you guys can check it out. It's going to be a great show. And we've got more show here on Front Office Sports today coming up after this break.
Frank Reich is the head coach. You beat Stanford and that season to clinch that 10th win, the hottest team in the country. You can't keep them out, Joe.
So now Stanford, because they beat Boston College last week,
They're ranked.
Okay.
Notre Dame's in the top 25 today. They're going to have 10 straight victories. There's no way they stay out. Now, are you telling me that they're going to get tripped up by NC State?
NC State's
Devin
undefeated.
Leary still there? I don't even know.
NC State, Dave Torrance there.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Mike McDaniel got a personal victory.
Yeah, he get fired on the tarmac. Okay, I can
yeah.
go back. Yeah.
Well, this has been my take on the Dolphins. I think you'll agree. The more they lose, Tyreek Hill becomes the most important player in football. Because Tyreek Hill getting traded becomes likelier and likelier.
Yeah.
And Don, he's not going to get traded to the Cleveland Browns.
Correct.
This is a guy who's going to shift Super Bowl markets if he is dealt.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
NFL season with about 750,000 downloads. Really interesting when you look at the third and the fourth spot. You have Bet365 and Fanatics, which were, again, that first week, they were the only sports books that grew. The good news for the other sports books in terms of downloads this week is even when you take out Fanatics and Bet365, app downloads still grew about 20% across the board overall.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left on it for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to everyone at Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington and Baker Machado. Well, the minority owners of the NWSL's Portland Thorns and the WNBA's Portland Fire are trying to block the founders of Panda Express from taking a minority stake in the NBA's Portland Trailblazers. So let's bring in Ben Horney, author of the Asset Class newsletter, for more on this. So Ben, tell us a little bit more about what this lawsuit is all about.
So Raj Sports, which is they're co-owners of the Kings, And like you said, they also are owners of the NWSL team in Portland and the WNBA team in Portland. They are suing. They're suing over this deal for the Blazers, but they're not trying to block the deal for the Blazers. So Tom Dundon bought the Blazers at a valuation of more than $4 billion. They're not trying to block that deal.
And he's the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes.
He's the owner of the NHL team, the Carolina Hurricanes. Raj Sports is suing the Churn Family Trust, which is the family behind Panda Express, which I haven't had that in a while, but I used to love their orange chicken. And we don't actually have a copy of the lawsuit yet. We have a copy of another document. They are asking for a restraining order, essentially. And so we have a copy of a document that if the judge signs it, it would grant the restraining order. So that's we have some details there. They essentially are asking for the judge to say that the Churn Family Trust is not allowed to buy into the Blazers.
Well, what's odd about this is there are reports and rumors that Raj Sports failed and had a bid towards Portland, the Blazers, but also, as you mentioned, they also have a minority stake in the Sacramento Kings. So realistically, they couldn't buy in unless they bought out of the Kings. It's just a lot here.
Well, so Raj Sports, right, as we're saying, they do have these other holdings in the Portland team. So obviously they have some foothold there, and the Kings are, Sacramento, California. Under NBA rules, they would not be allowed to own the minority stakes in both teams. So if they did try to buy into the Blazers, they would need to ultimately divest their King stake. Like you mentioned, there were some local reports that they were part of a different bid that didn't win to buy the Blazers. The lawsuit, or the document that we have from the lawsuit, says that they're alleging that the Churn Family Trust breached a confidentiality and exclusivity agreement from July, but we don't know what that agreement is. So again, there's all these questions we are still waiting to try to find out, but clearly there's some issue here.
So to that point, again, I know we're speculating on this because we don't have the actual lawsuit, but is this against the Churning family specifically, or is this just to maybe get in, to Renee's point, to that minority ownership stake with the Blazers? Or is this specifically about this family and there's bad blood between the two groups?
So again, as you said, we're speculating, but my guess based on what I've seen is that there's, I don't know if you would say it's bad blood, but there's some kind of dispute with specifically the Churn family.
Interesting.
And again, we don't know if it has anything to do with Panda Express.
Right.
I'm not here to promote Panda Express,
Right.
but I did used to love their orange chicken. We hopefully will find out more on Friday. So the complaint was filed under seal. It's in Delaware's Chancery Court, which is a common place for business disputes because a lot of businesses are incorporated in Delaware. It was filed under seal, and a public version is going to be released, or not released, we're going to have to get it Friday. It will probably be redacted, though, from what we're told. So it still might not really answer the questions, but hopefully it will illuminate some of what's going on, because it's very unusual for minority owners, majority owners, anyone to sue each other over this. The NBA certainly is usually going to try to keep this in-house and resolve it before it gets to that point.
And that's exactly what I was going to ask you, because my initial thought was this was because of the unsuccessful bid for the Blazers that Raj Sports has now tried to launch his lawsuit. But as you're mentioning, we don't even see this happen often, where we see parties like this that are filing lawsuits against each other. This doesn't happen.
It's very unusual. It's also, I said this at the outset, but it's important to note that the lawsuit is not trying to block the sale to Tom Dundon. Tom Dundon is not one of the defendants. Also, the NBA, WNBA, any of the other minority owners that were announced, they're not involved. So again, like you were saying, Baker, it seems like it's against the Churn Family Trust, and we don't know what that history is. Raj has not commented, so we don't know if they were interested in buying into the Blazers. That's just reported. But there's a lot of rumors swirling, so you would hope that they make it clear at some point.
All the more reason to continue that we'll follow up with the story, and you can as well by signing up for Ben's Asset Class newsletter over at frontofficesports.com. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. And let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. Well, Renee's sister Jean, the Loyola Chicago chaplain who became college basketball's most famous fan while cheering on the Ramblers during their Cinderella run to the men's Final Four in 2018, has officially retired from public duties at the young age of 106. The university says she's no longer able to physically be active in her role. Now, Sister Jean began serving as the men's basketball team chaplain in the early 90s and, of course, became a huge fixture on the sideline wearing that maroon and gold scarf. I already miss Sister Jean already.
I know, it's crazy because she actually got involved with Mundelein College in Chicago in 1961, which then merged with Loyola Chicago. So she's been there for years, for decades, and it's been so fascinating just to see her rise to the spotlight because she's just so heartwarming. She's also a fellow Virgo.
Yes,
she's 106 years young, as you mentioned, and she's just very inspiring. So I hope she gets to enjoy her retirement.
Absolutely, and she was a great good luck charm for them as well. Everybody was like, they made the Cinderella run because Sister Jean was there. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of the show. 100 episodes. We've crossed it.
Counting,
Amazing.
baby.
We'll see you for the next 100 tomorrow. Bye.